So we recently had the 2023 NFL draft, and I have seen some early mock drafts for 2024. And now I am joining that group of people that have made an early 2024 mock draft. Today is my first mock draft of the 2024 NFL mock draft season, and it's never too early to start a mock draft. Now, I'm using the draft order that Pro Football Focus has presented to us. But I did edit a few picks towards the back of the first round. But other than that, it's exactly how Pro Football Focus has drawn it up. And then the Cardinals having pick one and pick two of this first round. So let's get started here with the first overall pick in this mock draft. Now, I am wondering if the Arizona Cardinals did indeed have the first overall pick. You wonder how it happens, as there is still an unknown if Kyler Murray will be ready for the start of the 2023 season, or if he doesn't play at all this upcoming season, or if he returns mid-season and the Cardinals are already out of the NFC West race and they just sideline him for the year. Do they trade Kyler Murray to a quarterback needing team? As I think there's going to be a couple more needy QB teams that a lot of people are thinking of at this very moment. But I am going to go with what I think is going to be the correct pick, Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC, being the first overall pick. So they have the first pick and the second pick, as well as this is the Texans' first round pick. And I think they go with Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State. And this is a dream first round for the Cardinals right here. To get the best quarterback in this draft class and the best receiver in this draft class. Pick number 3, the Buccaneers. And they are also a quarterback needing team, as I do believe the Baker Mayfield deal is just a 1-year deal. So I think they go with Drake May out of North Carolina. Now, you could argue that this is where the real NFL draft will begin, with the Colts at pick 4. And I think the Colts, they boost up their offensive line. I think they go with Joe Alt, tackle out of Notre Dame. Up next, we have the Commanders on the clock. And I think that if they do indeed are drafting in this spot, I am assuming that Sam Howell didn't perform as the Commanders were hoping for. So I think they do go quarterback in this draft. But the quarterback I have them going with, I think it's a pretty unexpected quarterback. I have them going with Quinn Ewers, quarterback out of Texas. I think this 2023 college football season, Quinn Ewers is going to prove himself. A little early college football prediction here, but I have Texas winning the Big 12 conference. And I think Quinn Ewers becomes a Heisman finalist, maybe even the Heisman winner, even though Caleb Williams is the preseason Heisman favorite. I can't really see them wanting to give Caleb Williams another Heisman, as we've only had one back-to-back winner of the Heisman Trophy ever. So look for Quinn Ewers to have a good season. Next up, we have the Green Bay Packers. And I think they finally go wide receiver. I think they go with Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. Now, for years, the Packers have not drafted a receiver in the first round. Kind of like the Steelers never drafted an offensive tackle in the first round. But this past NFL draft, they finally did it. And I think in the 2024 draft, I think the Packers will finally do it. When they find out how stacked this wide receiver group is and how stacked the wide receiver groups have been in recent years. The Packers, they finally learned from these mistakes and they draft a receiver. And Ohio State receivers, they are the safest bet in the NFL. As I cannot think of one Ohio State receiver that has been a complete bust once they got in the NFL. Next up, we got the Raiders. And I think the Raiders, I think they boost up their secondary. They go with Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama. Although maybe they could go receiver as Davante Adams is getting up there in age and Hunter Renfrow has been dealing with injuries recently. And there are rumors that they were going to trade Hunter Renfrow in the offseason. But I have them improving their secondary, although I could see maybe this pick, maybe if we get further into a mock draft process, maybe a Roma Dunze or a Xavier Worthy. But pick number 8, the Titans, and I have them going with Aluminiwa Benashu out of Penn State. And I know this isn't the most exciting pick. The Titans, they drafted Peter Skoronski. And to build one of the best offensive lines in the league, you can't just draft one offensive tackle and assume it's going to be one of the best. Look what the Cowboys did a couple years back. They took an offensive tackle in the first round back-to-back years to build up the offensive line. And I think the Titans, they do the same thing here. Pick number 9, the Rams are on the clock. And I think this is a pick right here that I feel like could be very controversial here. Matthew Stafford's getting up there in age. They did draft Stetson Bennett, but I feel like Stetson Bennett, I feel like his sole purpose for the Rams is to be a backup quarterback. And I'm not fully convinced that if Matthew Stafford, if he did hang it up, if Stetson Bennett would be QB1 for the Rams. So I think they take the most surprising route of this mock draft so far and go with Bo Nix out of Oregon. Bo Nix, an extremely underrated quarterback. I have talked about him on my channel for the last couple of years about how underrated, underappreciated he is. And I'm happy that he got to succeed to an extent at Oregon. But he has one more season left at Oregon. I'm hoping that he has his moment and Oregon wins the Pac-12, goes to the Rose Bowl, wins it, as he's the type of guy that deserves a moment like that. Now, the Bears are on the clock back-to-back here. So, first pick here, the Bears, I'd say they go with Dallas Turner, edge rusher out of Alabama. And I think they add a receiver here. I think they go with Xavier Worthy out of Texas. I think they give Justin Fields another weapon. And as I mentioned a moment ago, the receiving class, I think, is stacked. I think it's the most stacked we've had in the recent couple of years. I think that 2020 group of receivers is the best class we've had from the last 5 years. I feel like this is possibly second best. Pick number 12, the Patriots. And this just completely screams a Bill Belichick pick. They go with Brock Bowers out of Georgia. Now, a tight end may not be the top priority for the Patriots, but this is the kind of thing Bill Belichick would do. As I feel like Brock Bowers, he can fit in any system, but he definitely fit in Bill Belichick's the best. Now, pick 13, the Falcons are on the clock. Now, if the Falcons are picking at 13, it makes me think of one thing. Desmond Ridder didn't get the job done. And with the Falcons having the easiest schedule this season, I feel like his leash is pretty short. So I think they could go Michael Penix Jr., but I think they probably give Desmond Ritter maybe one more opportunity. Because if they're picking at pick 13, they came up just short of winning the NFC South. And if they were just close, I think that they'll just try to improve that defense. So I think they draft Jared Versey out of Florida State. And I think at pick 13 at this point would be a massive steal by the Falcons, and they take advantage of it. Pick 14, the Giants. Let's see what do the Giants do here. I think the Giants, they did recently sign Daniel Jones to that contract extension. I think they'll go with Kalen King out of Penn State. Now, I know they just drafted Deonte Banks in the draft, but we got to see if Deonte Banks is going to have an impressive rookie season. And if he does, I do feel like they could draft a corner to try to pair up with Deonte Banks in the long run. Pick 15, the Broncos. They finally are in the first round again. And I think they're going to go offensive line. They go with J.C. Latham at Alabama. I just feel like you invested so much in Russell Wilson. He's got, I believe, once 2024 hits, 3 years left on that contract. You got to protect him because he took a pretty decent beating in 2022. Even though I do think that Russell Wilson does improve this year with Sean Payton, yeah, you got to protect your assets at this point. Pick 16, the Seahawks. Now, the Seahawks, they gave Geno Smith an extension, but I think they draft Michael Penix Jr. I think it's more of a mentor type of thing. So I think they're going to let Geno Smith finish out the contract, have Michael Penix be a backup for a couple years, then we'll see him take over. Pick 17 for the Steelers. I think they're going to go with Jerzon Newton at Illinois as that improves the front of their defense. Pick number 18. Now, this is the final year of Kirk Cousins' contract, I believe. But they could also trade Dalvin Cook. And I would not be surprised if they did. So for now, I'm going to have him go with TreVeyon Henderson out of Ohio State. As there's rumors that Dalvin Cook could get traded, the Dolphins have been linked as a possible destination for Dalvin Cook. And even though Alexander Mattison deserves the opportunity to start, I doubt the Vikings give him that opportunity. Now, the Texans on the clock with the Browns' first pick from the Deshaun Watson trade. And I think they're going to go receiver. I think they add another weapon for CJ Stroud. I think they go with Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. Actually, wait, never mind. They go with Rome Odunze out of Washington. Although I could see him go with Adonai Mitchell, keeping the Texas hitting in Texas, but I feel like Rome Odunze, I think he's the better pick long term. And I do think Adonai Mitchell, I feel like he will be a first round pick by the time it's all said and done, but I feel like he's definitely could be overshadowed by Xavier Worthy. Pick 20, the Saints. And I think with Cooper DeJean out of Iowa, a compliment to Lattimore. Pick 21, the Dolphins. Now the Dolphins, they are in the first round again after losing their pick in this year's draft after getting caught in 4K. And I think they go offensive line. I think they go with Zion Nelson out of Miami. So I think that'd be a great fit for him. Pick 22, the Ravens. I think with Denzel Burke out of Ohio State. Now, one thing that hasn't really been talked about is the Ravens defense the last couple years. The big talk about the Ravens in the last year and a half has been Lamar Jackson. Even though the Ravens defense, they improved from 2021. They still have some holes in their defense. And they go with Denzel Burke. Pick 23, the Chargers. And I think they go with JT Tuimaluo out of Ohio State. It really boosts up the Chargers' front end of their defense. Now we have the Cowboys in the clock. And I think that they go with Javon Bullard out of Georgia. I feel like a compliment to Trayvon Diggs. Now the Cowboys, they're not known to always draft by needs. They kind of do the flashy pick at the time. But I do think if we saw someone like a Xavier Worthy on the board when the Cowboys came up to pick, I could definitely see that being the pick. But I think they go kind of based off need here. Next, we got the Packers, as this is the Jets' second round pick that turns into a first round pick because we know Aaron Rodgers is playing more than 65% of the snaps. And I think they go with Blake Fish out of Notre Dame. Probably not the most exciting pick, but I just think that might be the direction that the Packers are wanting to go because they did give Jordan Love another year on that contract. They extended that contract out. So it's time for Jordan Love to prove himself as they're getting him help for the long run. Pick 26, the Lions. And I think the Lions will go corner. I kind of wish the Lions would have addressed it early on in the draft. As they go with Malachi Moore of Alabama, as they did trade Jeff Okudah to the Falcons for basically nothing about a month ago. Next up, we got the Jaguars. I think they make a very kind of random pick here, kind of surprise pick. But I think go with Jatavion Sanders, tight end of Texas. And they still got Evan Ingram, but I was kind of surprised they didn't go for a tight end at some point in the draft. Next up, we got the Bills. Now, I thought the Bills were going to definitely trade for DeAndre Hopkins, but I think the Bills, they end up with either a Donnie Mitchell or Johnny Wilson here. But I'm going to lean towards a Donnie Mitchell. Pick 29, the Bengals. I think they go with offensive line. I think they go with Connor Colby out of Iowa. pick 30, the 49ers. I think they also followed up with some offensive line. And they go with Kingsley Suam Mataya out of BYU. And rounding out the first round, the Eagles, I think they go with Tyler Davis out of Clemson and the Chiefs to round out this first round. They go with Michael Hall Jr. of Ohio State. And that will do it for the first round of my early 2024 mock draft. Comment your thoughts down below, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Until next time.